Energy work, episode 5. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for being here with me today. My name is Grace with creationalcodes.com. This is episode 5 of how to do energy work on yourself, how to become better at it, just some tools and tips on how to evolve your practice, become better, become more embodied, and become more masterful inside of all of your techniques, your practices, your tools. So I recommend you document everything. Like, if you can start journaling in the morning, journaling how you feel, like, don't get too heady about it, don't get too mental about it and trying to like break down everything, because you don't want this to be a stressful situation or a stressful habit. This is more so of you just kind of acknowledging your reality and like, you know, pulling your energy back from somebody else's conductivity or like somebody else's teachings. Like, it's very powerful to be a student, and I know myself to be a student, but sometimes we have to be like our own teacher a little bit, and that's actually a very powerful, masterful thing to do, is just to be like, hey, I need to be my own teacher for a little bit, and then I'm gonna come back to you and like see how I feel about you, and then maybe I'll find a new teacher because I've evolved and like something else has come through. And it's like, you just don't want your reality to be defined mentally by somebody else's thoughts and opinions and truths, because your truths are just as powerful, if not more powerful, obviously, and more meaningful for you and your experience. So I recommend you document everything. Journaling, after meditations, you should start like drawing your little visions, start like doing safe channeling with your higher self. Just like start communicating with these layers and aspects of self that will help you become a more masterful version of you. Like, I just gave out an idea of like channeling safely. So what that would mean is that you would go into meditation and you set the intention and commandment in your field that you are completely safe, that you are completely sealed and protected through the light of God, through the light of Christ consciousness, through unity consciousness. You do not consent for any negative entities, energies, or frequencies to enter your field through all time and space and dimensions, period. And then what you can do is you can say, okay, higher self, I want to talk with you. You get out your journal, because in meditation, it's really hard to, remember everything that's said. So sometimes it's very impactful to write it down as it's being said to you. We might not understand it in the moment when we're in a bit of a trance-like state, but when we come out of the trance, or it's not really a trance, it's just like, like a theta state. When you come out of that brainwave state, you will be able to, oh wow, this makes a lot of sense to my conscious mind right now, instead of like trying to comprehend it while we're in the theta brainwave state. So make sure that you feel safe and sealed, not like you're like talking to some astral being in the 4th and 6th dimension. Check out my last video on dimensions to know how to not interact with astral beings and beings like that. Not that they make us, not that they can do anything to you if you do not consent, but that, sometimes there are trickster energies and you just don't want to like invite yourself to have like a phone call with somebody who's like has some darker intentions, right? So make sure that you're connecting to a beautiful, healed, whole aspect of self in the higher dimensional planes that wants to communicate with you, and start writing down your conversation with them and start being open-minded. Like, don't let it be completely mental. Hello. And then you're like trying to, in your mind, like create a conversation. Don't do that. Let it come through you. Like, let it literally effortlessly fall. Don't try to force it. Don't try to predict what they're gonna say. Like, just, and if you feel like, if you're asking questions to your higher self or to a being, a higher aspect of self, that's where it gets real tricky, because your mind has a desired answer and you have to be very neutral in receiving an actual answer. And this can be tricky, and I've even had numerous times where, even with clients, we've had to ask numerous times and then like clear the space numerous times, and we receive different answers, because there are beings that have a motive for you to receive an answer, and sometimes that answer is not true, or sometimes that answer is like camouflaged, or sometimes we have a mental idea of what that should be, or we have a programmed idea of what that should be. And we just have to be really knowing of like, okay, that that didn't feel right. It's almost like instead of receiving it mentally, you should receive it like through your heart and through feeling. And a lot of the times in my meditations, actually, I receive information through images rather than like words, because words are easily diluted and easily manipulated. But visions for me are quite clear and quite unaffected by negative entities. So find out like what that is for you. Find out, and this is again why we need to be self-sourcing and documenting our experiences, because you need to start having these experiences where you're like, okay, what is this for me? And like, what is my tool and what is my gift and how can I become better at that? And that's the best way that you can do that. Even though you can join a course and a program and have them tell you all these cool tips and tricks that they've learned themselves, the best way for you to do it is by doing it yourself and like having the student teacher experience with yourself and letting your body be the teacher and letting your mind be the student and letting yourself be open-minded to what that tool and gift is that you have inside of yourself. So here's a little bit of a why, even deeper into why I really recommend that you document everything and start self-sourcing. One, because you have a reference. You can always go back to that experience. You can go back to the information you've written down. You can go back to, I think I had this experience a while, and then you can start like building and creating the puzzle piece that maybe you need to in order to heal an aspect of self, or like to put the puzzle pieces together. You learn self before you learn opinions. Ooh, that's a good one. You need to learn yourself before you learn other people's opinions, because other people's opinions should not define yourself. You define yourself based on who you are, based on what your morals are, based on what your beliefs are. That's what makes you empowered. 3, you build connectivity with Source as your own guide. So again, I had a person I was connecting with as a client, and they were asking me why I connect to all these star races and angels and stuff, and why I don't just connect to God, like as my priority. And it had me kind of puzzled, because I was like, oh, I don't know why I don't do that like as my priority. So that's my new priority is connecting with Source and creating a connection with God that might be greater than my connection with my angelic teams or galactic teams. Not that, there's any real difference or hierarchy there, but God's Source is like the most, it's like it's creator, right? So like that's a very powerful source to be connected to, and that's like what we are made of. So that would be a beautiful conductor and a beautiful energy to be sourced to directly. Number 4, you build trust in your growing knowledge. So you build trust in yourself because you have so much reference. You have so much information that you've been writing down. You kind of just are curating this beautiful dictionary and thesaurus for yourself. Thus then that you can connect with other people via your own experience, not somebody else's experience, but your own experience. Number 5, you learn to do it yourself, which takes more time, but it builds more mastery. So all of the masters, yes, they had teachers, but they also would like crawl up into the mountains for like years on end, and they would just sit with God, and they would just sit with themselves. And that's where these huge, powerful teachings would come in, and that's where they would become this version of self that we know them to be. So it's not that, we shouldn't have teachers or that we shouldn't rely on one another, but that you are your greatest teacher. And that is just a reminder that you can lead yourself. You can lead yourself and then, come back to the circle as a whole. And this actually does need to be differentiated, because if you perceive yourself as entirely whole, then you wouldn't have a problem really with interacting with a teacher and them telling you their beliefs. Maybe that wouldn't influence you in such a potentially massive way. Maybe you'd be able to take it as like a grain of salt, or just be like, that's an interesting perspective, rather than somebody that was unhealed in some ways and was like looking for somebody else to make them whole, and thus they put so much energy and belief into that one person that it took away from themselves, and it took away from their trust in themselves. And lastly, they always say that a teacher should teach, or a student should also teach, because it gives you the knowledge and it reiterates your knowledge on the topic. So if you want to get better at something, you should teach somebody what you know about it, because then you're teaching your brain and you're going over the information and you're going and like kind of coming at it from a different perspective because you're teaching it, and it gives you a different route at looking at the problems that you're facing or looking at the information. And that creates mastery as well because you are teaching it. Even if you don't fully know exactly all of it, you are gaining experience as teaching it. So yeah, you can like make recordings, make little cute recordings about, hey, this is how you do this, or post them on YouTube. Why not? Some people might actually gain information and value from that thing that you're sharing. They might need somebody to kind of reflect with them or talk to about it. And as well, documenting reiterates just like you writing down what you believe. Like I said numerous times in this video, you go back to that information and you feel understood. You feel acknowledged. You feel like, oh, hey, I actually already had this experience. Okay, cool. Like sometimes the mind just needs to be reminded that like your experience is valid. Your experience is a perpetual spiral of self-evolution, of self-growth. And that's a beautiful thing. Like it is such a massive thing to be able to go back to your own information and reference yourself. So I know that this energy work video is a bit shorter. I am going to be doing the inner child one next week because I know somebody was asking for it. So you can expect that video next week, and I'm so thankful that you watched this video. Please give this video a big like and please subscribe to the channel. It means a lot that you're here with me, and as well, you can write down below your comments any kind of questions or inquiries you have about this, any of your own opinions, any reflections that you have, any new videos that you're curious about receiving or information that you're wanting to break down with me. I can definitely provide a space for that. And I'm so thankful that you watched this, and I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.